Coming to embody the magician is a station within life progression, as outlined in a specific archetypal map we currently term the tarot. Ideally, one would learn and activate the 57 previous archetypal stations in preparation to embarking within the magician's path. However, due to the amount of instructional material that represents, I cannot guide through that entire map in this particular series, Keys of Magic, although at some point it is my intention to do so in a separate series on my channel. At the time of recording this, I have not, but depending on when you are listening to this video, I may have that available on my channel. So alternatively, I will trust, and you can trust, that generally speaking, if you feel the call to the magician's path, you have likely done the previous work in some way, implicit in your eternity and in your current Earth lifespan. One consequence of offering oneself and being proactive with the alchemies available at each archetypal station is the release of karmic debris. That is, the embodiment of all the gifts and maturities that culminate in the King of Wands, or more accurately, the fusion of all the suit kings, wand, cups, swords, and pentacles, results in an individual, and that would be you and me, whose influence other beings can safely consent to and not have to be subjected to encountering and responding to a karmic jerk. In other words, this life progression culminating in King is the proving of the juice of trustworthiness, discarding all the husks. I want to make a note here that archetypal gender is aside from personal gender. All personal genders pass through all stations. This lesson, my purpose in making this particular video, is to explicitly connect you embarking as the magician to the previous Fool station. Living the Fool allows you to come to the gate of the magician's path, and once you cross the gate's threshold and move down the road as the magician, you will continue to draw on the mystery of the Fool. As the magician, you need the Fool you, even though there are some pivotal distinctions in the magician's path from the Fool's experience. There are actually two Fool positions. One Fool is at the very beginning of the tarot map, at the very beginning of the journey of the minor secrets. This is a Fool who really does know nothing, an infant. And to interject a note that in initiation frameworks, secrets are not things you cannot know. Rather, they are offered to you to know, to have revealed to you over time and preparation. Secrets, mysteries, arcana cannot be explained to you in an informational way or handed to you like a prize. They have to be lived. You undertake them firsthand. That's why they are secrets, because even if the words of the secret are said to you, you don't know what you are hearing until you have life itself open it to you and you live in a way that embodies that treasure in real time. The initiations are just the guidebook. Life is your master. So we have the infant Fool, but the Fool position right before magician is what is called the wise Fool. The wise Fool has matured through all the minor alchemies. When the individual comes to their kingship and lives in that way, king being the final station of the minor progression. And then comes to the point where they would like to progress further. The kingship starts to feel like a clothing that no longer fits. The invitation to the king is to lay down their crown and leave behind their kingdom and become the fool again. And don't get me wrong, you can never undo being a king in the inner life. That kingship can always be drawn upon or embodied as needed or desired. But if you want the greater gifts, the greater alchemies of the major arcana, you release the kingship and admit again that you know nothing. Which, when it becomes that point, is not as hard as it sounds, because the more one knows, the more one realizes one knows very little. The king is an individual who is in place and has created home and kingdom. The fool is one who is mobile and travels the world. The king makes decisions, takes a thought into their head, and then executes that thought into reality. Their will is done. The fool makes no decisions and releases will. They surrender and wander and take what comes. The king's possessions are many, replete. The fool releases all their possessions and becomes a beggar whose bowl gets filled with whatever is there. And to note that to release a kingdom is to gain the world. So the fool's possession is the whole world, but it is also a recognition that it does not have to be created by will. It's just there. Anyway, I could go on and on about both the king and the fool, but my point is to thus relate these to the magician. That's where we want to be thinking about it for this lesson. The wise fool gets reacquainted with their mother, the abundance and embrace of the Great Mother, and just enjoys that for their journey. But after some time of that, another question comes through that signals the gate to the magician's path. Up until that gate, the fool doesn't do, they simply be. But after a while, with coming to know the mother, the fool may eventually feel to ask, "Mother, what would you like me to do? How can I help you?" Because the fool has seen and traveled the world and been the fly on the wall and had the witness of the back scenes of the earth and of the world, and has a very clear sight of any illness and dishonor. The fool has been provided for, but now is interested in participating in providing. The mother answers the fool's hunger for service with the magician's path and says, "Okay, you've been wandering, my child. Now come back to place." Now there is a section of the magician alchemy that is the wandering magician, but the magician doesn't start there. First, the magician submits to the novice strictures, the childness of receiving instruction and discipline and meager possession. The king would never do this submission. That's why it has to come from the fool. The fool puts out their beggar bowl, and one day what is set in that bowl is a mentor, a master, a village, a novice room, novice drills, novice water, and gruel. And the fool says yes, and begins the magician's path. The beggar becomes the artisan. The beggar who has been enveloped by a blanket they simply found now is shown as the magician how to weave the blanket. The fool accepts whatever is placed in their beggar's bowl. The fool is empty of preference, especially all previous preferences that emerged or were held to in the minor arcana journey to king. As an individual moves into the major arcana journey by way of the magician's dedication, one of the archetypal opportunities is to go to the next level of affirming one's preferences, which don't mix that up with getting your own way all the time, but preference about how you identify and how you express and your unique gifts to the world as an artisan. These choices and interests are malleable and not dictated by the world, but by the magician for themselves. And their unique self becomes the gift and service to the world, the physician for the illness, lightlessness, and dishonor in the world. The journey of the minor arcana is to wrestle the world until it becomes yours as a king. The fool releases that world. The magician shapes the world to them. The fool is undedicated and sails wherever the wind blows without a chosen purpose. The magician undertakes dedication and aim, tacks the sails to catch the chosen wind, and eventually breathes and blows from within to create the wind itself. The fool unlearns and surrenders to bewilderment. They become confused by the world again. Kings are not confused, but that's also a blindness. The magician dedicates to learning anew. The fool laughs. The magician keeps the laugh bequeathed to them by their passage as a fool, an eternal flame protected in the chalice of their heart. Yes, the magician becomes a bit more serious, but serious about fun. The world is an illusion and a canvas for preference and objective. It's not real, but the magician can bring the imagination into real. It's meant to be great fun. So I've described quite a bit about what makes the magician distinct from the fool. Neither is better. They are both passages for the life journeyer. My homework assignment, though, is for you to say hello to the fool you, to lift the lid on the cage and let the fool you out, so that you can draw on the gifts of the fool to support and enrich your magician experience. Still be. Still put out your bowl to see what drops in. Still unlearn and release old kingdom and possession. Especially presenting as a candidate and novice, you want to understand that you know nothing. Still laugh and dance and be in wonder at Mother Earth's magic all around you. You get to join the weaving, but you can also trust that it's already all woven for you. Here is a spell you can speak as often as you like. It expresses both the fool and the magician, and indeed the fool within the magician. I laugh at leaves falling from trees. I laugh when I see that the tree is me.